has held many hats in his 35 years of experience in the construction industry. Paul is a licensed contractor and a past builder. For the last 21 years, Paul has served as an instructor for the residential building construction at Fox Valley Technical College, where he teaches the future of the construction industry. Paul is a past president and current vice president of the Northeast Wisconsin chapter of NARI and a trustee on the Wisconsin Builder Association Foundation. Let's give a warm welcome to Paul Lewandowski.
I would like to thank the association for inviting myself and my coworker to attend your event yesterday and then allowing me to speak this morning. I know our name is Residential Building Construction, but don't be fooled by that. We're basically a carpentry program, and with talking to several of you last night, some of you this morning, I think we all realize we're all in the same boat. We're looking for good people to get into our industry. I'm looking to get people into our program. You're looking to get people into your manufacturing facilities or onto your job sites. And so hopefully we can come up with some strategies today to help push it a little bit down the line. So I started off, the silver bullet, not so much with the beer can, but I think so many people are looking for that silver bullet of what's going to solve the problem. And I know years ago, people would come to myself, they knew where, I taught at the Tech, and they would say, what are you doing to get people into the industry? And when they would say that to me, I would go into kind of a litany of our marketing efforts to try to attract young people into the industry. And, I would kind of go through it all, and when I'd get done, I'd be like, boy, I don't know, that sounded like a lot of what I'm doing. And I guess just with years of experience, now when I get that same question, I turn it right back on the individual and say, well, what are you doing? Why is it just my problem to get people into the industry? Are you talking to your son or daughter or the neighbor kid or your brother, your sister, whatever? Are you talking at schools? So I think we all are realizing it's a bigger problem than just what an individual, can solve it. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of talk about our program so you kind of get a gist of where we're coming from, and then I'll get into some strategies and things that's going on. So residential building construction program. Unfortunately, our name came about 25 years ago when our program started. It's a little misleading why it has to be residential building construction. Just a little side note, the Carpenters Union actually fought the individuals that wanted to start our program. So it was started by individuals from the local home builders associations. About 30 years ago, they realized there was going to be a problem. They just couldn't get enough, skilled people onto their job sites. And when this came to the college, the Carpenters Union fought it, so we had to be called residential building construction. So when you search us out, we're very difficult to find because most people don't put in residential. They'd probably put in carpentry or carpenters or construction. So we're a little bit obscure. We're actually kind of contemplating a name change. This is an old slide, but this problem has been around for a while. And again, we're 8 years later and we're still seeing the problem. 83% of construction firms reported difficulty finding qualified workers. We'd all agree. I mean, we're finding, hard time finding students. But these are things out there. I mean, and unfortunately, a lot of companies now don't just want skilled people, but they're happy if someone just shows up, and that's terrible. So a nice thing about our program and what a lot of the employers that are hiring our students, they get what we're training them, but they look at us as a year-long screening process. Do they show up? Do they bring their tools? Do they have a good attitude? Can they get along with, different people, other people and stuff? So So a little bit about our program. It's a one-year vocational diploma, 45 weeks of class. We take, winter break, spring break, and a little bit of summer break, not much. So 5 blocks of 9 weeks each. The students are full-time at our job site or at our shop and classroom. So what we do is we break our group into 2. I primarily handle the shop and classroom part of the instruction. My coworker handles the job site, and I'll get into the job site in a little bit. But we try to run it as close to a job other than the students not getting paid, but they're with us full time. So, Monday, Tuesday, I have one group of students. We're either introducing something in the classroom, they practice it in the shop, and then on Wednesdays, the group switches. So right now we have a house, my coworker who some of you met last night, he's with the entire group of students out there. They're prepping the house to be painted. So later today we'll be priming the house. Tomorrow we'll be painting the house. But that's kind of how that works. But so they're not, with us for a short amount of time, then they're running to math class or English, kind of like the high school experience. They're with us full time. In addition to the carpentry classes that we'll get into shortly, our students take a semester of blueprint reading and estimating. So we get into, kind of the basics of that. We get into a semester of AutoCAD. And again, we're not trying to turn them into draftspeople, but give them some basics, why it would be applicable if they want to draw some basic details. If they're having problems with something, maybe a stair layout, headroom issues, things like that. Putting together a basic plot plan, so get into that a little bit. We have had some students, actually, they were really good at computers. They weren't necessarily the person that really wanted to be on a job site swinging the hammer or climbing on the roof, and they've gone that route. They work for some larger companies that they just kind of fell in love with the software, and they were good at it. They had the background at least to understand the construction side of things. They have a workplace reality class, and that one is kind of the catch-all. It's a lot of, I wouldn't call it touchy-feely stuff, but some leadership in there, getting along with different personalities, writing a resume, work experience, things like that. And then a first aid and CPR class, which this is the first year that we've had a kind of a revamp. There's a new department chair ahead of that part of the college, and we're tailor-making the first aid class to what typical injuries a construction person might find. So like obviously saw cuts, dislocated joints, penetrations, things like that. So I think that'll be a benefit for our students. So our tuition is approximately $7,500 for a year. We require the students to buy basic hand tools, a cordless drill or a cordless impact driver, set of levels, and then t-shirts. We do have financial aid. It's available just like any other higher education. But there's a big thing that we try to stress to our students is there's lots of scholarship money available, and there's more. It seems like every day there's more coming in. The industry is finally starting to realize that we've got to do something about this problem. So I've got some slides. I'm just going to show you a few houses and things that we've done and tell you a little bit about that. So our program has always been supported very well by our college. And when I first started, so I've been there for a little over 21 years, the majority of the technical college programs were building something across the state. So, if you have one by where you operate, you might have one. Most of them did some type of building. Now I believe we are one of 2 that are still building. Some of them have just completely shut their programs down. Some have, modified them, changed them. I know the Madison Technical College was building tiny houses a year or two ago. You know, I don't, as a carpenter, I just don't see that as very feasible. But we are still building houses. The majority of what we build is funded by our college's foundation. So they buy the land, you know, we bid everything out, they pay the bills, and we provide the labor. So some of these houses that I'm going to show you are funded by our foundation. Any money after the sale goes back to the foundation, so it's kind of a fundraiser. And then our program gets some dedicated scholarships out of that, and then the other money goes college-wide. Another route that we went kind of during the recession was we partnered with a couple different nonprofits, but one was their funding wouldn't allow you to completely tear down a building, so you had to fix a building. You could take it down to almost the bare bones, but some of the projects in here, I've got a couple pictures, were some great projects because there was a lot of demolition as far as carpentry demolition, and then there was a lot of new rebuilding on those particular projects. So I'll point those out as well. So I guess I kind of want to show these slides. I mean, I'm certainly not trying to brag about our program, but oftentimes when I tell someone that we build a house, the first connotation, the first thing that someone says is, oh, like a Habitat house. And we have done some work with Habitat, but I want to kind of get across that it's a lot more in depth than just building a Habitat house. So these are a couple houses. This was actually our largest house we ever built. It was about 3,300 square feet. Honestly, I'm never going back there again. It was talk about a project running, you know, overtime. This was just a lot of overtime on that. So just to kind of give you an appreciation of what we're building. So these were all for our college's foundation. We build from Oshkosh. We've built from Oshkosh all the way up to Kaukauna. We're almost out to Omro. We've been in Neenah, the village of Harrison, Appleton. So this was a duplex for a nonprofit. We built 3 of them for them. For some of my earlier years when our enrollment was in the 20s, we did a couple projects a year, but this was actually a good project. So this was one of those that should have been torn down. Anybody would have torn it down. Old house, what they wanted us to do is basically cut the whole second story off. What that was an original house. You know, the family must have grew. They opened up the back wall. They basically built the exact same house facing the back. And then at some point they added an addition on to the back part of that. And it just got worse and worse. So that's what it looked like. They used to use convict labor to do all the demo. So they stripped the siding, gutted the inside, and that's what we got. The house is 24 feet wide. We were cutting sections of the roof off. The roof had up to 6 layers of shingles on it. So it had, I'm guessing, the original cedar shingles, and then when you counted the roof boards, you had about 2 inches. So all we could do is cut it into about 4-foot sections to heave it over into the dumpster. We didn't try to strip the shingles off. This is what it looked like when we finished. So we added a brand new second story. So I guess what I'm trying to get across to all of you is, I mean, we're a very serious carpentry program, you know, by the work that we do. So this was one in Appleton. This was a house. We ended up eventually tearing off the entire front porch. There was no foundation under it. The roof, how it was built, there was a lot of things that just didn't work. And those are wolves or coyotes howling at the moon on there. Pretty unique. This was really a treasure. I mean, it was really bad. And when we finished, it turned into this. And actually, this is, you know, I know our students take a lot of pride in what they do. We always have an open house at the end of, you know, each project where they can invite their parents or, you know, wives, children, whatever, to come and walk through it. And I think I had probably one of the best compliments I could ever get in my career that came out of this house. So what this house was, or going to be, was going to become a home for disabled adults. And so we had our open house. The open house was supposed to run, I don't know, 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, something like that. And it got done a little early, and my coworker and I were just about to leave. A car pulled up, and a man and a woman got out. They were probably in their 60s. And I mean, we didn't recognize them. They came up to us and they said, we're here for the open house. Is there an open house? And we said, well, it was, but it's still, and I said I could walk them through the house if they'd like. And so my coworker left. I let them in the house. They walked through, and we kind of separated a little bit. And when the woman came down, she's crying. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? I should have left a few minutes before, and we'd have been good, So I didn't know where it was going. And I said, is everything all right? Did she live here or something? I don't know. And she said, her adult son is going to be moving into this house in, like a month. And she couldn't believe how nice of the job our students did on that particular project. And I'm like, well, that's how we're training them. I mean, good carpentry is good carpentry. And she said, they've looked at, all kinds of properties throughout the area, and they're all basically, throw some new paint on them and throw the disabled people in them and call them good. So that was really, honestly, that was probably one of the best compliments that I've ever had. So anyway, so we try to do some of these. Actually, this next year we're going to do one for a nonprofit. We're going to build a brand new house in Neenah for a group that's going to have 4 disabled people in it. So it'll be all ADA compliant and stuff like that. We have done a little bit of concrete work in our program. We do teach our students about it. Some basic forming. Here I was that house that had the addition on the back. They tore it out. It had a rubble foundation, so we used ICFs and we poured that. Our students got a good handle on real things happening on a job site. The concrete truck could only get its chute to about halfway down the wall. So this wall was 24 feet long, 7 feet high, and it came out from the house 8 feet. So we poured half of that with 5-gallon buckets of concrete. So you want real world experience. That was, for them, it was an eye opener. Here we're pouring a structural slab over what became a wine cellar in one of our houses. So our framing block is in the summertime, and one of the things that our program is a little different than some is our students don't graduate like in May like most people do. They graduate in August after we frame up like next year's project. And I want to kind of emphasize that to you because I've got a contractor that has called me probably 5 or 6 years in a row in August, how does he do it? He always calls me after our students, they're not graduated, and so they're never available for him. And I tell him every year, our guys don't graduate now, they graduate in August. So what we do is we'll talk about site layout. We always have our students stake out our projects. We get into sizing beams, headers, floor joists, so we get into the code book. Wall layout, stair layout, rafter layout. So again, we'll talk about it in the classroom, show them things in the classroom, and then they'll practice this stuff out in the shop. So just going through some of these slides. That was actually a custom house in our program. 2 years we did build 2 custom houses for people, and I can honestly say never again. But this was on Lake Winnebago. So the students are doing the work. There that we've got an older guy. Our program, we typically get about 50% are right out of high school, but we get, the 20-somethings that might have tried college, been in the military. We have had some guys in their late 30s, early 40s that are totally doing a career change. We've had dislocated workers in their 50s that always kind of dabbled in some construction, but were comfortable in the mill and just couldn't pull the trigger to leave. We've had a couple guys in their 65-year-old guys that basically wanted to kind of get into the building industry as builders, but they really didn't have any experience in it, so kind of a wide range of things. So our exterior closure block, that starts right in August. So when our new students come in, the house is sitting there on the job site with paper on the roof, paper on the outside walls. We'll teach them roofing, siding, and windows. Primarily, we're teaching them asphalt shingles. We'll get into vinyl siding, some wood siding or other hard base sidings. Flashing is really big with us, so we get into that. And we'll use a metal brake, so even though there's not a lot of brake bending on residential sites these days, but if you're getting into remodeling or other industries, so we get pretty in-depth in that. So here that was the old house. We're tearing off some of the details on it. This was before the implementation of the new fall protection. So now all our students, we wear the harnesses and things like that. One of the classes that our students get, it wasn't on this slide, is they get an OSHA 10 certification, and they have one day they really put an emphasis on fall protection. So not only the harnesses, but use of ladders and scaffolding and stuff like that. Here we're doing just a fix-it job for the nonprofit. They would ask us if we could fix the hole in the roof and reshingle this garage. It was kind of a perfect thing to show our students. The hole in the roof that they told me about, I guess most of you, what would you think of when someone says they have a hole in their roof? Maybe a little hole. Almost a half a sheet of plywood was rotten off on the other side of the house, or the other side of the garage. There was no ventilation. This was a great teaching moment because the soffit, the original soffit on here was all just plywood, which wouldn't be a problem if there were some vents cut in there. There were not, but at some point, whoever re-sided the garage put vented soffit panels on there, but never cut holes in the plywood. So it looked like, nice vented soffit, but there was no way for the air to move through there. So here we're doing some work on the outside of the house. We sometimes bring in guests that's one shot of our shop. Window installation, so this guy was from Anderson Windows. Interior closure block, that's what we just finished. So we talk about insulation, R values, things like that. We don't typically insulate our projects. We have done some of it when we did the nonprofits, but we get into doing aspects of it to kind of save some money and hit the things that the insulators miss. Moisture management, ventilation, and then gypsum board installation. Drywall finishing, we used to tape and mud our projects. We don't do that anymore. We do expose the students to it, but just at school. So get a couple pictures here. Hanging some board, doing a little taping. Our interior finish block, that's where we're at now. So we get into door hanging, and all these things that we're doing, we're teaching them all the proper tools that a carpenter would be using to accomplish all this stuff. Molding, identification, production, and installation, stair finish, cabinet installation, and then hardwood floor installation. So again, just a few pictures of what we've done. So kind of to summarize kind of this, I got this slide up here, and you'll kind of see where I'm going with this thing. It's not, again, just an individual to solve this problem like that magic silver bullet, but I think it's going to be more like a pincushion. It's going to take a little bit of effort from everybody to kind of solve this labor problem. So what I'd like to talk about now is just we've got great support for our program from a lot of contractors in our area, and I don't know, are any of you, contractors or businesses from, the Appleton, Oshkosh area? Okay, so we've got a few of you. So there's technical colleges all across the state, and again, they all have various, programs and things like that. I can't, speak for all of them, but our program has great support from the local home builders and the remodelers associations. One of the things that we see support of, and maybe this will, help you guys out, is some of these employers, we have an employer day, and so that happens in the summertime. We invite a number of employers in, typically the ones that are familiar with our program that are, coming back year after year hiring our students. But then if we get calls during the year of, hey, how can I talk to your students? So we invite them in, give them each about 20 minutes to talk, so we're not keeping them all day long like a typical job fair. And it's been great. I mean, we have no problem getting these employers to come in and talk to our students. And then, some of them will actually bring the student on board for like on Fridays in the summertime. And then at the end of the summer, either hire them up full-time or maybe they part ways or whatever. So that's been real good. Some of the initiatives that we are starting to implement is bringing past graduates back to talk to our current class. So this isn't really a recruiting effort, but more of a retention and to encourage them and say, I was just like you, 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and this is what I'm doing in my career. So these employers are willing to kind of give back. I mean, we're not paying that person to come in and talk. The employer is, paying them to come in and talk. Some of the things that the college is doing to kind of promote our program and the trades is we've done some trade expos up at our main campus in Appleton. We put on an event, Hands on High Tech, with our wood manufacturing program down in Oshkosh, where we bring in hundreds of high school students for 2 days. They come for just like a 2-hour block, but we do it over 2 days to come in and see their program and learn about our program. I've used to visit high schools and stuff, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we've got, there's a lot of things or entities out there that are really promoting the trades. And again, I think, just observation is it's been a little bit too little, too late. And now, I mean, there is a good effort to start kind of jump-starting that again. But I know I'm part of the Wisconsin Builders Association's foundation, and we're kicking off a huge campaign to try to raise money, for scholarships and promotion to try to get, people into the trades. The local home builders associations and, your association here sounds like they're, looking at this seriously. But also the unions are out there, so we're trying to get the same individuals, for all of this, but there's a lot, they're, being pulled in a lot of different directions. I think we'd all agree that some of the common themes behind low participation in the industry would be, a big push for 4-year colleges. And that's probably been going on for about 40 years. So the typical students that were in high school that would go into the industry, are being told, hey, you should go to college or whatever. So also the elimination of traditional trade-based middle school and high school classes. You're seeing a little bit of a resurgence, I know, in our area of trying to get the trades back into the high schools and stuff by bolstering their shop programs and things like that. So I would encourage you guys, if you have an interest, to talk to the high schools or talk to the middle schools, and if you have a, whether it's expertise or financial means or something to try to really push those things forward. Also, the working conditions. We all know what it's like on job sites. It's raining, it's muddy, it's hot, it's cold. So I mean, that's now you're trying to tell someone, hey, this is a great career. Come slog through the mud or freeze or get soaking wet. And then ultimately, pay. So some of the things that we've encountered to try to get people into the trades would be, we're trying to, it used to be, just say, hey, you should come into this, but trying to get with like the school administrators more so than just talking to the tech ed teacher or something like that, but the administrators and the counselors who are going to be talking to these kids. So maybe you invite some to a meeting, or you just go have lunch or something with some of them to say, hey, this is a viable opportunity for some of your students. Also, starting at home, if you have children, it was a good life perhaps for you. Would you want your son or daughter to get into the trades? Let's see, neighbors, friends. I know there's a lot of talk about underrepresented populations. So if we want to look at black students or Hmong students in our program, or Hispanic students, we've had all of them in our program. Almost all of them have done very well. So that's an avenue. Females, obviously this has been a male-dominated industry for so long. We currently have one female student. I would say about every other year we get a female student in our program, and the majority of them have done very well and stayed in the industry. So, but not many of them think about, going into this industry. So some of the things that, we're seeing for support or whatever, businesses providing money or resources. So a lot of times I get asked like, well, you must, get everything donated for your house builds and stuff, and we don't. If anything, we probably pay more than what the average builder is paying because we only build one house a year. So we have had some good donations over the years, but that might be a means that, if some of you suppliers could help a high school program or a technical college program out. And how I've always approached it is I'll always take a handout, but I'm not asking for a handout. Maybe we could buy at cost, or cost plus what it costs to ship it to a entity like ours. Some of the things that are kind of helping once, some of our employers that are getting our students to try to keep people, making proactive hires rather than reactive hires. I can't tell you how many times we've talked to employers who are like, I need to hire, 2 of your guys right now, or 3 of your guys. We had one large contractor come in and say he has a demand for 25 carpenters. Well, I only had 15 students. So I can't help you with that. But, trying to hire the right people, we have a group of employers that they literally keep coming back to us. That one has 4 past graduates working for them. One had as many as 10 at one time. They just keep coming back year after year. But some of the things that they've talked about, and I'm sure you guys have talked about these things, but what we're seeing is, or what they're seeing is, the employees want more flexibility in their schedule. Instead of we're starting at 7 and working till 5, maybe on a day they can cut out early or something like that, or go to 4 days a week or things like that they're seeing. Competitive pay, obviously you got to pay something, but then also we're seeing some of the things with some of the perks. We've got one contractor that he basically reimburses or provides $1 an hour. So for every hour worked, they get $1 in a tool account, so they can buy their own tools, which he expects them to have on the job site. He provides all the large specialty tools, but if they want to buy cordless drills, or they want to buy, a special hammer or whatever, so they do that. Clothing, some of these crews that I'm seeing are decked out, in the wintertime, every piece of Carhartt clothing, nice work pants, t-shirts, sweatshirts, things like that, to kind of help offset things. And we're even seeing to some degree, on a limited basis, but company vehicles for some of their employees, where it might have taken 10 years or 15 years to get that company truck, where now we're seeing it in 5 or 6 years. So for some of those special employees. So I guess I would encourage you, to look at, the technical college system as one place to perhaps find some, possible hires. The website, again, we don't show up all the way until you get to the R's for residential building construction. But I would start there. But one of the things, because the colleges have gone to a recruiting software called Handshake. I don't know if any of you have ever encountered it. Honestly, in my opinion, it's a pain in the butt. So what I'd recommend is if you're trying to get a hold of potential employees out of the technical college system, is to reach out to the individual instructors and talk that way. Out of fairness, we can never just specifically tell one student like, hey, this company called me, you'd be great for them. So we have to post the ad, but we have a bulletin board in our classroom where we will share that with everybody and encourage them to apply. One of the things that I find with a number of employers in our area is they don't call about references. And I don't know if you guys call about references, but unfortunately I've dealt with a few different employers that they'll call looking for somebody, and I'll say, well, I'll tell them, and they'll say, well, I've had one of your guys and he didn't work out, and we'll talk a little bit, and I'm like, they never even went to our college. I don't know where you're going with that. I'm like, did you ever call about him? No, I didn't call about him. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. The other thing I would do is encourage you. So I mentioned before that we have members of our building industry that sit on our advisory committee. They advise our program. To get involved like that, I mean, try to get, so, might not have that at the high school level, but if you have a technical college system by you, they're the ones that kind of set our curriculum. So if you're, obviously your industry is a little bit different than the residential, but, and maybe they don't teach anything to do with this part of the industry, but if you get on their advisory committee, you could try to get some of that stuff implemented into it. So I know I've spoke a long time. Do any of you have any questions?
What have you been averaging for?
Okay.
Oh.
People get a hold of you.
Okay, so that's a good one. I do have some business cards. I have a couple, I don't have a large amount of flyers to tell like the classes that we have, but I have some business cards here. You could get a hold of me on the Fox Valley Tech website, and that would be a good way to get a hold of me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
What's the average amount of students that you've been having in the past 5 years?
Okay, real good question. So our capacity for our program is 24 students a year, which, we have not hit that for a long time. We've been averaging about 15 a year for the last 5 years. Selfishly, having 15 or 12, that makes it so much easier on the instructor as far as you'd have less to grade, you can do more one-on-one with the students, but knowing the reality of the demand out there, I mean, I wish we had 50 students. And that, my coworker feels the same way. I mean, obviously that would mean another section or two, but it's just crazy. I don't know, again, I think the pincushion sums it up. I mean, it's going to take everybody, and not just to get them into our program, but to get them into the industry, Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much.